Welcome to the road to growth, success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, Realtor with listeners. Today I have Karen Hill, owner of Fusion Promotional Marketing. I guess the easiest way to describe it is you're watching a movie, you're like, oh my gosh, I have a product that's just fit for this movie right here. I guess that's probably the easiest way to describe it. But how would you describe Fusion Promotional Marketing?
Yeah, it's a really fun business model as far as working with brands and working with all the major studios and creating different tie-ins. The most recent one being Garfield the movie. So if you've seen Pop Chips, that was the brand that was actually featured in the movie, which was really unique because most packaged goods don't have the ability to actually be in an animated movie. And this was kind of a first for Pop Chips, as well as a lot of other brands, to be able to showcase the different ways that you can integrate and showcase a brand in a movie, starting off with product placement. So Pop Chips, being the brand, actually was featured in the movie with Garfield. And then after that, they actually were able to build a very robust national campaign using the assets of Garfield to create a really fun shopper marketing program that you probably have seen in your local markets, such as Kroger, Albertsons. It was national in scope, so it hit pretty much every major retailer across the states. And that had on-pack branding involved, which was really fun, with Garfield being featured on the pack of chips, as well as some really fun PR stunts, activations on Melrose in California, where we actually created a huge wall of Garfield, actually, where it was a really great photo op, as well as a great opportunity to have street teams sample the product. But that's really what I do, is really kind of almost like a broker, in a sense, where I'll find a brand, I'll find a movie, and then we bring it all together and create the concept and execution.
So you have the relationship with all of them, and let's say a new movie's coming out, right? Are you already thinking in the back of your head, okay, well, let me try to see if I know anyone that's trying to spend some marketing dollars towards putting their product out there? Or is it more so, hey, this movie's coming out, I need to find a product that would kind of fit with this?
It kind of goes both ways, depending on how I'm secured. So I've worked both on the studio side, working and finding brands for their upcoming movies. And I will say that most theatrical releases, most studios plan really far out in advance. So I actually have calendars of movies, a couple of years out that are in production or finished, and they're looking to start promoting them and finding partnerships. Or I'll have a brand come to me and say, you know what, I'm looking for a tie-in for 2025 fourth quarter. What do you have that fits my demo? So it kind of works both ways, depending on how we go about the marketing strategy. But it's always, all of these programs takes a long time to actually get in place, figure out the strategy. And oftentimes too, as we all know, things shift a lot in Hollywood. So especially as of late. So
how do you define like your pay? Is it an hourly thing? Is it per the job? Is it how big the scale is? Are you here kind of what you're going to be doing and then kind of figure out how you're going to pay? Because it's not like you already had agreement with this entity over here trying to figure it out, but how do you figure out, I guess, pricing on this?
Right. There's two different types of pricing that I can do. Sometimes it's a retainer fee, where it's monthly, because like I said, these programs aren't like a quick hit and go. These take a lot of planning, months of, figuring out the partnerships, going after partners and trying to secure the partnerships. Usually it's an upfront fee oftentimes, and then an execution fee. So it just kind of I will say every program is very unique depending on the needs of whoever that particular client is. And then based on the time against the project, I will kind of figure out in my head, okay, I know how many hours this is going to take to do. And then I kind of back into that particular figure. So it just kind of varies depending on the scope of services that Fusion will provide as well.
Yeah, it's a business that I guess I never really thought about, but it makes sense that it's around.
Yeah, it's very niche what I do. I will say there's not a lot of agencies in my space that actually do this. And I've been doing this agency type of work for over 18 years now. And it's definitely evolved a lot. And I will say as of late, especially with the studios, things are always changing. And the way things go to market is always changing. So you always have to be kind of one step ahead, trying to figure out, okay, what's going to be the next big thing. I will say I started off doing a lot in home entertainment. That's almost going away completely with DVD releases. That was a huge part of my business. Now I've shifted to doing more theatrical releases because DVD and home entertainment is really, it's really shifted sadly over the years to where it's almost obsolete. So streaming's taking over, all of your Apple, your Roku, different streaming platforms, but there's opportunity there as well. I will say theatrical is still going strong. There's still a lot of movies in production going into production. And I think you'll start seeing even more movies coming out this year that have been on hold or kind of they took a pause and they moved it and shifted the date off because of the strikes and so forth.
So let's rewind. I mean, a young Karen growing up, did she have aspirations to be in the marketing industry, or what was her aspirations, I guess?
Not to be doing this. So I actually wanted to be, I went to school, Cal State University, Fullerton, and my degree is actually in communications and advertising. So my first out of high school, I want to be a newscaster. That's what I wanted to be. Then taking courses with my professors, they started talking about radio advertising and how much money those individuals can make doing, ad sales. So then I was like, oh, so you mean I'm not going to be on channel, 7 in LA right off the bat? And they're like, no, you're probably going to be in some faraway town, starting off. And I'm like, that doesn't sound so fun, but making money does. So I actually shifted and started looking into radio sales. But I will say my first job out of college was actually working for a fragrance company called Cosmere European Fragrances. It was in a marketing role, and I actually was a fragrance model during college, making extra money on the weekends. That kind of evolved. And when I actually graduated school, I had the opportunity to be able to get hired as a marketing coordinator for all of Southern California. And I love shopping. And so I thought, oh, that's fun. So I was able to actually go and work at the time. It was Broadway, if you remember that retailer, and some Macy's and some other Nordstroms. And so I had all the major retailers. So my background has always been, having a love for marketing and sales. I've always been kind of in that sales background. And then I decided after, quite a few years in working with Cosmere, I really wanted to do what I went to school for. So I actually started looking around and I had some friends at the time that worked at K-Frog, which is a country station in Colton. That was one of my first jobs. And then I also worked for a Spanish radio station in LA for a very short time frame, which was kind of difficult because I didn't speak fluid Spanish. So it was a little hard. So I decided to go to country, and then I actually went into the LA market working for KCBS marketing and working in radio. So that's where this kind of evolved. I actually started working in radio and ad sales and doing marketing and loved doing that. That was really fun. I was actually a marketing specialist for the LA market and helping brands that were on radio come up with different ideas and actually teaching a lot of the staff at those radio stations how to do marketing tie-ins with those brands and how to create a really unique idea and then take it to radio to promote.
Okay, so you're getting paid a salary at that time. When did the idea of going, I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to make the jump come about?
It was a tough one. So I'd been working in radio for several years actually, and I was at a point. Radio is very interesting. I will say it's a very male dominant industry.
The radio?
It's very hard to move up. And so I kind of figured at that point in my life, I just had my son. I was commuting probably 4 hours a day to LA from where I lived. My son was 2 years old, and it was really difficult because my nanny at the time would call and say, oh, Shane just took his first step. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, and I wasn't there, So it really started to put things in perspective because it was so difficult being a working mom, being a professional, having a 4-hour commute and really not having family time. So I really started kind of analyzing priorities. What's really important to Karen? What can I do? And at the time, I had another colleague that I had worked with that actually started Fusion 18 years ago, actually probably a little longer. And he said, Karen, you should really think about coming over. And I thought, ew, I don't know, maybe. And so then I really took a long, hard thought about this. And I said, maybe this is a good idea. But it was really hard because I was leaving benefits. I was leaving a steady workflow. I was leaving a lot, a career, but at the same time, I was super excited because I thought, what, this is the opportunity where I can take this and run with it. The sky's the limit. When you're in radio sales, it's commission based a lot of the times. I was actually on salary, but there's always that commission piece of it. So I'm like, it's kind of, what do I do? So jumping ship meant starting from scratch, trying to go build from, zero, because at the time, it was a new business and it was like, go find your business and bring it in and develop it. So I really had a hard time with thinking, okay, what if this flops? What if this, doesn't take off and then I have to start all over? But that wasn't the case. It's just really having faith in what you do and believing in yourself and knowing that the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you put your mind to do. And along the way, you develop and you really, it's quite amazing what you can do when you take that first step, but it's scary, super scary, I will say.
How much money did you have? Do you have like a certain amount of money saved, or because
I did, not a lot though. I really didn't. I kind of was like, okay, this is my potential. I knew of certain clients that I had worked with at CBS that I thought I could probably go to and they would work with me because we had a really good relationship. And luckily that was the case where I went to them and I said, I'm starting my agency. I'm going to do this on my own. And ironically, when I left CBS radio, I was actually kind of doing what I'm doing now. The difference being is that I didn't have to attach a radio ad schedule to the promotion. That's how I got paid at CBS, was bringing the radio part in. Now they didn't have to actually promote it with radio. They could if they wanted to. And then I would just go back to my, resources and add one. But really it was about finding the client, finding the studio, and kind of doing what I'm doing now and bridging that gap and kind of creating the actual promotion. So it was kind of learning as I went. And again, at that particular time, I did have a partner. I don't any longer. So between the two of us, we were able to kind of build and figure out what our pricing would be, who we would target. And it was really just, we learned as we went. There was really no footprint for what we were doing at the time. It wasn't as though we bought an agency and we took over. This was like building from scratch. So there was a lot of hard work involved, a lot of figuring out things as you went, but it all worked out.
Can you talk about the previous partnership? Like, did you buy the person out, or did it just like dissolve?
No, I would say that was not a very good experience.
Gotcha.
I would say having partnerships can be great, and it can also be very challenging.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this partnership did not end well. But I just took off and took the high road and carried on.
I guess on the topic, because I've had a lot of business owners that have had partnerships and teams. Are there things, if you were to start a new partnership, maybe a new business or whatever it might be, are there takeaways that you go, we have to do this before we do a partnership?
That's a good question. I'm pretty open as far as a partnership goes. And I think that the tough part is trust. There was a trust element that was broken. And I don't know if I could ever if I had to reevaluate that trust again with someone else, it would be tough because that trust factor was broken. So I think partnerships can work. I think it just depends on the type of industry that you're in. And I think it just depends on, it always has to be 50-50, which ours was. So that was fine, because I think if it's a little off, like one person has more control than the other, I think there's always that struggle. So I would say if there was a partnership to be made, and I love working with other people, I very much am a people person. I love to brainstorm. I love to strategize. So, when you work for yourself, it's often very lonely because you're just you. And that means you have to come up with your own ideas. You have to kind of just, you don't have anyone to talk to unless it's your your other client, which I will say I've had some wonderful clients. They're all great. And I'm always an extension of that client's marketing and our shopper marketing team. So in a way, I get to work with them in that capacity where we're always sharing ideas. I give ideas. And like I said, I love to strategize. I love to brainstorm with anybody. So that's always really fun to do. So I would say though, just if there was a partnership element to any type of business, think what the pros and cons are. Are you going to, does someone have a strength? Is it kind of a yin and yang type of relationship where one might have, some type of ability that you don't have? I think it's always great to surround yourself with people that actually know maybe something that you don't know, because that's how you grow and that's how you learn.
I'm curious, about the partnership, because you had a negative experience. Is there in your head any way that you'd ever do a partnership in the future again?
Possibly. I think it would depend on who that person was and how well I knew them. And that's what's strange. I knew this other individual really well. So I knew the family, so that didn't stop from, whatever, what happened didn't stop because I didn't know the individual very well. I guess I didn't know him as well as I thought I did, but I think I would be open depending on the circumstances. I would be very cautious though, just because I've been burned. So now I'm like, that roadblock is up. So I'd have to really take a big look at the picture.
And it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, in your guys' partnership, that you both had your own clients and you were doing it separately, but kind of almost together. So there wasn't like a big communication where you had to tell your client saying, hey, I'm the new point of contact. Nothing like that really came about, right? When you transitioned?
It did. It
Oh,
did.
it did. Okay.
And I didn't know, it was kind of things were happening in the background that I wasn't aware of. So I wasn't sure who knew what was going on, because there was that level of deceit going on, unfortunately. So I wasn't sure. I was in the dark. I really didn't know until the last minute. I figured out some things that were going on, and then I figured out what was happening. And so at that particular, I was just honest with everybody what was going on.
Awesome.
That's kind of, integrity to me is everything in business. Period. If you don't have integrity, you don't have a business, as far as I'm concerned. So that is a really high bar for me. And so I was just honest what was going on with, clients. And luckily, I will say I didn't lose clients in the sense that they wanted to work with me. They knew what I was, what I say, I do. So they understood that working with, Karen, not just Fusion, working with Karen, they were still going to get the end results that they always had received.
Was there anything, because I think there's a line, right, for business owners, right? When you're vulnerable with your clients, they can respect that, but also sometimes they go, do I want to work with basically something that has these holes in it? That kind of almost line right there. So how are you, I guess, being vulnerable but also giving like comfort, I guess, to the clients that they're going to be in good hands?
I think it's just, it's basically when you kind of say what's going on, you have to perform. So at the end of the day, if you're not performing, they're not going to work with you anyways. So it's having that trust factor that they know that they're in good hands. And it's just making sure that when you say you're going to do something, you follow through, and then you keep a client. So I will say that when I have a client, I don't have a very big turnaround. Like they come back and they work, because the programs that I do put together for them work well for them. And they know that I'm always there for them, as a business person. That's one thing I will say too. You're never off. Your phone is always on. So they know, it's not like a 9-to-5 job. So on the weekends, it's whenever they have something comes up, you have to be available for them. And that's just the way I work. I take that on. So it's that type of business where they feel comfortable. They know they're in good hands, and they're getting a solid performance out of me.
I guess going back to like the prospecting avenue of getting these businesses, I guess the businesses is pretty straightforward, right? You're trying to track down the decision maker. But for like these big movie companies, is it word of mouth? Is it kind of working your way up from like the assistant to the next person, or what was the process of kind of making your connections?
And that's a good question. That's one thing that it's difficult to try to even train or to talk to someone, because it's very much relationship building. The relationships that I have at the studio level, I've had for years, and I consider a lot of those folks good friends as well, because we've really grown as individuals. And so many of the people in the entertainment industry, it's a very, very small niche clique, in the sense that they rotate from studio to studio. So let's say they're at Warner Brothers and now they're at Paramount. So they all kind of rotate in the same space. And a lot of them have been there for years, as I have been too. So it's really nice in the sense that, we've worked together, we've grown together. A lot of those individuals started off maybe as an assistant, and now they've moved up to a VP level. So it's been a great experience in the sense of we've grown together. But prospecting and I'm always prospecting. I'm always looking for new brands. I'm always looking for, brands that are new to the market that nobody else is working with. Because that's the challenge, is that it's very competitive. So it's really trying to be, going after someone that nobody else is going after, or developing that new piece of business that maybe no one's heard of. Shine Water is a really great example of that, where Shine Water was a new brand that really wasn't well known on the West Coast. They're pretty much started in the East Coast, and Trolls came up. And I thought, what a perfect marriage, Shine Water and Trolls. And so luckily, the marketing person on Shine Water had a little bit of a background in doing entertainment marketing. And he thought the same. He's like, this would be great. The challenge was taking it to a studio that had never heard of the brand. They're like, I've never heard of Shine Water. I have to take this to the filmmakers. It's not like a Coke or Pepsi or, a huge brand, which that they know of. So it was really, having that relationship with the studio and saying, take a leap of faith with this brand. It's going to be big. It's a great fit. It has all of the different assets that you're looking for. We can take this and build it and make it huge. And it was a very successful campaign. But again, it all had to do with that relationship and having that studio rep believe in what I was bringing to them, saying, okay, Karen, I believe in what you're doing. I believe in this brand because you're bringing it to me. And it worked out beautifully.
That company, Shell Waters, correct?
Shine Water. Uh-huh.
Shine Water. So if you could use that as an example, I guess, you was it word of mouth that you heard about this new company? Were you actually actively searching for like new companies that just came out? But what happened to make that initial conversation with them?
It was a new brand. So it was really kind of, again, I was trying to go after brands that have a good footprint. This was a unique situation because it was a new brand in the sense that it's still kind of getting out to different retailers, but I saw the potential in it. So it was really reaching out to them with the idea. I thought Shine Water, Trolls, it had rainbow colors. I mean, everything about it couldn't have been the most perfect fit. So
you cold call them?
Sorry?
You cold called them?
I did. Most everything I do, unless I already have that relationship with someone, is reaching out to them with an idea. That's how I kind of go to market. I'll say, oh my gosh, that would be so good, for this upcoming. I know movies that are coming out. So I'll say, I'll look at a movie list and then I'll see a brand list and then I try to partner them together. But yeah, that was one where I knew Trolls was coming out and I saw this brand. I did some research and I thought this will be a great, great fit. And so it was that initial email to a marketing director that was head of all shopper marketing and coming up with the concept. And like I said, this individual luckily had done previous types of programs with another brand before. So they were familiar with how the flow was. They were familiar with how a Hollywood asset could be very beneficial for building a new brand. And that was kind of the call to action, is like, this is great for the brand too, to be affiliated with a huge entity like Trolls that everyone knows about. It's a great franchise. It's a top tier movie. So they had to pull out all the stops, because when you're working with a big property like a Trolls franchise, they want a lot back in return because they can. It's a proven entity. They knew that whatever beverage they were going to bring in for this particular category, it was going to be beneficial for them too. So it was a win-win really for both the studio and for the brand.
The cold calling aspect or cold email aspect, I don't know, is always intriguing right there. Because you have this I guess, product, right? You have this individual that you have this kind of picture kind of lined up. So when you're reaching out to them, is it simply like, are you open to an opportunity, ideal in basically the cinema space? And I think there's a great marketing opportunity for you.
I do. It's always, I try to make it so it's not cookie cutter when I'm just doing, I really try to think about a title for the brand. And
Yeah.
that's kind of my initial, like, I have this opportunity with this upcoming movie, and really talk about the benefits of using Hollywood as an equity for their brand, and how it could be beneficial for them to increase sales, to bring unique opportunities, to tie into, a very well-known franchise, to help, there's all the different things I'll list out in this particular short email. You make it too long that people don't read it, right? And then also using case studies. So I have different case studies and showcasing on pack, website, sweepstakes, stunts. There's a whole different kind of, I have a case study that I'll send to them. So that way they can actually look at it and say, oh, okay, I get it. Pictures probably speak better than words, and oftentimes in this space, because it's so much, fun showing all the fun assets that you can utilize for building out a program. So I often will showcase, here's different programs that I've done. And I've probably done over 500 promotions. I mean, tons. And I have on my website tons of case studies that they can also take a look at as well. So I always try to drive, traffic there to say, if you look at some of the different titles, you can actually see what some of the brands have actually done. So that's a good way to also to kind of get new business too.
All right. Last question in regards to this aspect of it. Are you, how much are you diving deep into finding the right email to email off? Or is it simply just like the customer service website? Or are you actually going on LinkedIn, another platform, trying to find who the point of contact is?
I have been using LinkedIn, and I will say, I think at first that was a great strategy, but I feel like now people are getting inundated so much with sales pitches that they don't look at LinkedIn. But it's a great way, especially if you have the LinkedIn that's kind of you pay a little bit more to be able to get contact information. I would prefer to get an email directly to that particular individual if I can. I usually ask for that. That's a lot of times I'll say, hey, I've got a great opportunity, kind of like a little carrot. I want to send something to you. Can you please share your email address? I prefer to go that route but sometimes you can't, and you have to kind of, and I have pitched on LinkedIn before, and I've sent decks. I just don't think the response rate is as great. But a lot of what I do is word of mouth as well. So oftentimes, individuals I've worked with, they move to a different brand, different studio, and they know what it is that these types of programs are and how beneficial they are to a brand. So they'll take, they'll say, hey, I just moved. I'm at this, new look, new business, new brand. I want to talk to you about what you have to offer coming up for next year, or whatever that timing may be. So word of mouth is very strong with what I do, just because I've been doing this for so long.
If someone's listening right now and they're looking to, I guess, get more marketing for their product, what's the best way of them reaching out to you?
My email address is Karen, Karen, at Fusion, FUSION, promos, PROMOS.com. Email is probably the best way to communicate with me. And that way we can set a time, and I can kind of, listen and hear more about the brand. Really, it's kind of initially kind of figuring out what the brand is, and what assets I have to work with that could be a good fit. There's so many different ways to tap into Hollywood too. It's not just movies. There could be award ceremonies. There could be gifting. There could be, I've worked with some different companies where they look for product to sample. I mean, there's so many different ways, depending on what the brand is, that I can come up with ideas. And that's what I'm really good at, is figuring out what the brand initiative is, what they're trying to accomplish, and then coming up with a program that would work well for that particular individual and company.
Is there any kind of ballpark of like what something like this would cost? I mean, I'm guessing we've had more in consultation, but is there something that you're able to like stay that, hey, look, usually this kind of ballpark up to this ballpark?
And I think it depends on, it's very customized. I will say, if it's a brand, it usually, in working with a theatrical release or anything that's national, you need to be national in scope. It needs to be a brand that is big enough to be able to have assets to give back to an entity or studio, meaning you've got, you do social buys. Social and that whole platform is just blowing up, as we know. They love, social buys, digital buys. If you have a radio buy, if you have anything that's national in scope to help promote the partnership is what they look back. So a lot of times too, so my kind of creation of everything is bartering out assets between parties. That's kind of the cool factor in this. I've got the studio assets, I've got the brand assets, and both of those come together. So it's kind of like bartering out, like, what does the studio have? Well, they have the equity, they have, creative that they can lend out depending on, what the property is. They have gifting for sweepstakes. There's prizes. There's all kinds of fun things we can get from the studio side. But then in return, they're going to want to make sure that that brand has national exposure. They have buys that they do on, if they're doing a media buy, above the line media, below the line media. There's a lot that goes into this, but that's where I come in. I help figure out, okay, this is what's going to be needed for attaching to this particular property. And this is what that brand will have to have. So it's really kind of when I get on a call, I start asking those types of questions. Like, do you have a website? Do you have a social media buy? Do you place any other buys? So that's up to me. And then if it's too small of a brand, I'll say, this is unfortunately isn't going to work for you, but maybe we could do gifting. There's so many different award shows where maybe we can, give a gift, and that's a way to kind of get exposure from a PR angle. So again, it's very customized based on what I would try to put together.
Yeah. I mean, I think simple is just reaching out to Karen and seeing if there's an opportunity for your brand. I'm going to finish it off. And thank you so much, Karen, for being on the platform. I'm going to finish off with one last question. Yeah. If we were talking in 5 years from now, where do you plan to expand your brand and I guess yourself? I mean, are you going to take on other avenues yourself?
Good question. I love this space because it's not boring in the sense that nothing is ever the same. So for me personally, I like a challenge and I like to work on different types of programs. That's why I think I've done this for so long, just because it's not the same thing every day. I would get super bored with that. I will say I'm really getting into content creations for brands, being that I've been in the marketing space for over 18 years. I have a really good understanding of brands and I like to create content. That's something personally that I've been doing. I love the beauty space. I love, clothing. I love anything in that arena and showcasing and helping develop content. So that's something personally that I've been taking on that I really have been enjoying doing. So it's hard to say depending on where this will go as far as Fusion, but I love partnerships and I love working with different clients. I have great clients that I've worked with over the years, and I've been really blessed to be able to continue working in this space for as long as I have. I mean, 18 years with any type of business is a long time.
Is there a strategy that you basically could focus on the content creation more and have someone else take over more of the promotional stuff? Or is that, it seems like you're the company for the most part right now, right?
I am. And I will say over the years, I've tried to bring in other individuals to do what I do. And it's challenging to say the least. I mean, if there was someone out there listening and they're like, I would love to do that, call me. So I am always looking for, individuals that like this type of work. I will say you have to be really strategic. You have to be able to do a lot of multitask and just be very creative. So there's a lot of fun perks to this and coming up with ideas. It is hard to teach. I've tried, and either you're kind of have this mindset or you don't. It comes naturally to me because I've been doing it for so long. I could do it in my sleep. But to teach someone can be a little bit challenging. I've tried. But again, if there's that special individual out there, I would love to work with someone and, help develop someone.
Oh man, oh my gosh. If I was a little bit younger, oh my gosh, I'd be reaching out to Karen right now. This is like such a fun experience, fun opportunity, fun job. So if you're out there right now, just shoot the email, shoot your shot. You never know what tomorrow might bring. Thank you again, Karen, for being on the Road to Growth podcast. Hopefully everyone got some great nuggets right there. Any last words of wisdom?
And I would say if anyone has questions about what Fusion does or just business questions in general, I think we're in a space and time, right now is we all have to help each other out. So I'm always happy to talk to any business owner or someone thinking about getting into business. And, if I have any words of wisdom, I'm happy to share them with whomever. So by all means, I'm happy to always be there for anybody for that matter. And I love to brainstorm. So if there's anybody out there that's like, hey, I have this idea, what do you think? I'll tell you my honest opinion.
Perfect. Well, again, guys, thank you for listening. Please subscribe, please share, and go find Karen. Bye, guys.
Thank you.